and that's the Slicker special. This is what I imagine is the reason why you like playing champs like Vladimir, like Azir, like Seraphim. These moments where you just absolutely eviscerate the competition, where just they have no way to counter it because you're in a position where you can just straight one-shot them, where there's nothing that they can do. So instead of me trying to come up with a new playstyle for you, let's optimize your routine. And the best way to do that is to talk about levels 1 till scuttle. It's like the first, I don't know, like 3 minutes 30 of the game, and the next minute and a half is a continuation of what happened to it, and this first 5 minutes affects the first 15 minutes of the game. It's like the most important stage for Vladimir. And how you play it is probably the most important part of how you are going to improve. So rather than me coming up with all this cool shit that I've devised by myself and all the stuff I enjoy playing, let's work out how you can fix your early game routines and patterns so that you can come up with the best possible understanding and lead of the enemy team that you possibly can. So, I mean, sounds like a pretty fucking epic conclusion, yeah? The first thing that we should talk about is, even before the game properly starts, let's talk about where you can stand. Now, when you're trying to like watch an area, there's here, there's here, there's here, and then there's the tri-bush, where are the access points to your jungle. And these are insanely important to defend, because if your jungler gets behind at the start of the game, you just fucking lose. So you need to choose which point you need to watch from. And it completely depends on what your team's watching. If your team is sitting, your top lane is sitting inside that tri-bush, you don't need to watch where I am right now. You don't need to look at that choke point at all. Instead, where I'm walking to right now, this is where you should stand. And, you know, you can stand here, but it's a bit dangerous if they have champions like Blitzcrank, if they have champions like Maokai, someone who can instantaneously flash on top of you and lock you down. If that's the case, you stand here. And the second you see somebody, you just walk away. You don't ward, you don't look back, you don't try and fight, you just fucking book it. If your team starts trying to fight it, sure, you can go for it. But 90% of the time, if you're playing Vladimir, you just don't go for these flips, because these flips are going to lose you the game every single time. And I mean, it's the same side, like same on the opposite side, right? This is pretty much what I'm demonstrating right now. Except where I'm standing right there, you know why that point's important, right? Like, it's just another invade angle. So if your top lane is covering that bush, you stand here. If your bot lane's covering those entrances, you stand there. If someone's standing like in a position where they can watch that invade, then you stand here. So it's pretty much just like a wraparound of everything that's going on. Okay, so let's talk about this game that Elite 5 fucking plays here. Like, he does a weird rune setup where he takes Conqueror, right? We don't need sound. But, I mean, he's kind of like sitting under tower, not watching anything, and then 1 minute 20, he does the watching the area I was talking about at the start, right? But the important part I want to take note of is how he's positioning in the lane in the melee matchup. And I have a clip of you playing against that later, just to show you the difference in how you two are playing it. But the way that he plays it is he's constantly sitting inside of the wave and trying to force Yone forward, right? And every single time he goes forward, he just takes the punish. And one of the reasons that Vladimir is so fucking strong is because when he's standing at this point, he's expected to take a ridiculous amount of minion damage, right? Even if Yone's not hitting him and he doesn't take any minion aggro back, Vladimir's going to out-sustain the minions. So he's so much stronger than the enemy champions because he's going for trades inside of these waves and still regenerating the amount of health where he can just kill you on the spot, right? So he just persists at this, right? He just runs forward, takes all this minion poke, tries to bait him as forward as possible, dodges the Q, straight ignite, hits him with the Q auto attack, and then he just kills him, right? And the thing that got him to be able to do that started just before the minions crashed, right? It started right here. Look how aggressively he's positioning. Like, he's really trying to take advantage of the fact that if this Yone walks into his range, he can auto-attack him. He can take a chunk out of his HP and go for these continuous trades, right? Neither of them are trying to all-in level 1, trying to cheese like you would with Cassiopeia E, with certain Conqueror champions like Katarina. She loves to do shit like that too. They're just staying inside of his range, and he's just applying as much pressure and poke as possible, so that when the final trade comes in here, like when Yone decides, all right, this is where I want to go in, he has 300 health and Elite 5, so right, like 3 bars, each bar is 100 health. He has 300 health, and Elite 500 has just over 500, right? Well, almost, just over 400, I guess, yeah. Approaching 500, right? Like 1 Q will get him to 500. He has a pot that's currently going, and he can take this fight because he has Ignite, and he doesn't Ignite to engage, right? He doesn't flash on top of him or anything. He doesn't fully commit to this. He just goes forward and misses because of Elite 500's positioning. He goes through the wave, which forces its health bar to get low as well, which is another point I'll talk about in a sec. And he just punishes him down. And he just wins the trade because how he played the early stages, right? And what I was talking about just then of him going through the minions is when he, like, watch how what he has to do to get farm. Look how close he has to get to Vladimir. Like, every single time he goes for a farm, he's at risk of losing, like, 60 to 70 health. Or, well, 60 to 150 health, really, right? Like, he's just getting absolutely fucking chonked by this man. Like, look how much health he's losing. Yeah, he just plays this, like, aggressive positioning so well, right? So let's see how he plays out the rest of this lane. Because he doesn't have TP, so he's very, very similar to your playstyle of just, like, hanging about, picking up gold, sustaining better than everyone, not needing to TP, but instead going for these weird little plays where you sustain over time, you do damage over time, you hit level 3, which means you can't get ganked as easily, but you can still be a threat under your own tower. And he just does this, right? He hits level 3, and he just tries to get this wave going forward. Now, he's making a mistake here, right? And I'm sure you can tell what the mistake is. He has a ward up, and he's not using it. And he knows that a pro player, I'm going to assume he knows where on the map Echo is right now, right? Like, if we go back, can we tell it all? It looked like the way that the bot has passed, we can assume they've leashed. They've lost mana. Unless Kai'Sa started W, her Q applies onto the blue buff, so she could have faked it. We can see on the map that he's done it, right? But let's if I'm in this position, I'm going to assume that he's starting blue side, right? And he's playing Echo, so he has the ability to full clear. So he'll go blue, Grump, Wolves, Raptors, red, and then gank, right? He could go Raptors and then gank mid if there's an opportunity, but he wants to be at that scuttle at a specific time so he can claim priority of it. So let's go back. Alright, Yone's just showed up into lane. Echo's just arriving at Raptors now. Elite is in this insanely strong position where he can just poke out Yone, but he's not warding. And the area he should ward is around here. And we'll get to some areas you should be warding when you're going for plays like this. So Elite's just like, okay, I gotta pull this. I'll throw my E out quickly and get the poke down. And he goes forward to kind of like punish Yone for being in the game. And this is his mistake, right? He's going for this ghost without knowing at all where the positioning of the Echo is. So most likely he's going to get ganked. Even when you look at the mount, every single lane is being shoved in. Shyvana is about to finish her blue, which means that Echo is most likely finished his red, or he's just about to finish his red. Right? Because Echo Clear is really, really good. Yep, and he comes straight mid. And he's dead. But even when, like, even this play alone, right? This forces so many flashes. He gets both summoner spells of the jungle and the mid laner. Like, this is an insane position to start in. What they're losing is control over both scuttle crabs, right? So Echo can go top side, pick up that crab, run to bot side, pick up that crab, and you're getting double scuttled, which really fucks over your jungler, right? But the position that he's created for his team is actually quite immense, and for himself as well. I think Yone gets the kill, yeah? Yone has to back if he wants to spend that gold. So right now, Elite 500 is in an insanely fortunate position, and will has the ability to carry this game. Now let's take a look at your game. You're in a very, very similar position. You have the exact same starting items. The only difference is that he has Conqueror. Your runes are completely different, right? But you're both against a Yasuo-style champion.
30 seconds
and that's insanely good benefit. So watching just at the start, right, you can see that you're not positioning in a spot where you can actually cover that invade. So you're not actually watching anything for your team right now. You may as well be Finna sitting inside of your base. Right? Graves walks through, he knows that nobody's going to be there, so you're in a fortunate position, right? But if they're just walking at the time he walks through there, they can just flash E from Gragas, they can just flash Q from the Yasuo, flash Q from the Kalista, the Kai'Sa, flash Q from the Talia. Sure, it burns a couple flashes, but they're getting first blood, and you know how impactful first blood is, right? So let's skip into head to where the minions spawn. So already, your positioning is pretty lackluster. You're not checking to see if he's AFK or anything like that. Like at this point, Elite's positioned about here. Like even as you were walking up with the wave, you're inside of it, rather than in front of it, leading the charge. Because even then you can aggro some minions and pull them in a weird way that are pushed differently than what people are used to. So Yasuo walks up, you haven't created any pressure or anything like that. So he's just got this free lane where he's just getting free XP, just pushing it forward. Look, you're standing so far back. He only has Q right now, right? Like, even if Yasuo takes E early game, right, and he tries to auto-attack you to death with Conqueror, you're going to out-sustain him. Like, you went, shit, what's that called? You went Magi Soul Stealer, right? Like, you're going the Dark Seal path, right? Which means you don't have Corrupting, so I would personally play Corrupting inside of this matchup, because I can just poke and I can constantly harass, and he's constantly at low health, right? But instead, you know, even if you have this, you can still do an insane amount of poke damage, right? Like, this auto attack's really good, but you want to do the auto attack inside of this wave, because it'll kill this minion, right? But it won't kill this minion, which means Yasuo has to continue walking into you to get any punish whatsoever. And your second Q is just about to be up. And that's an insanely powerful position to be in. Like, you could be positioning up here, right? And your Graves just invaded Talia. So you know for a fact, you are not going to get invaded here. You're not going to get ganked, sorry. So you're in such a commanding position, right? That Q's perfect. But there's no follow-up auto attacks. He's about to hit level 2. Well, he needs to kill these 2 minions to hit level 2, I believe. Maybe this one as well. Yeah, this one there. Alright, so right now, if you look at the level up, Yasuo has hit level 2 when you're level 2, and he has the exact same amount of health as you. Like, you're in a fucked position. Yasuo's power spike's level 2 against you. Like, level 3, it makes it really hard for you to do anything, but level 2, he can fuck you up. So the first 3 levels when you're playing ranged into melee loses 1 to 3 and then wins 3 to 6. And then you get your ult and you're slightly more powerful than them, right? But levels 1 to 3, you have to be so fucking aggressive to the point where they don't feel like they can play the game. Like, it's so important that you do this. Because, like, as you will see as we continue to go further on, you just lose everything. Look at this. Look how much pressure he's trying to create on you because you're not pressuring him at all. Right, like, if Elite 500's in this situation, he's pressured this Yasuo. This Yasuo is fucked. This Yasuo probably has like 300, 250 health, and he's just like, fuck, I need to walk up and farm, or I need to go for an all-in. And if he goes for an all-in, he's fucked. And you're still ahead because you have this 400 health left. Alright, so he's in this insane position now. He knows you're going to go for a Q or an auto attack, so he just ease through this minion and pokes you, right? Like, you walk forward, he ease through this minion and pokes you. Goes forward again, dodges your shit. He just comes back and forces you out of lane. Like, you are in a terrible position, right? Like, this is so hard to get back into this lane. He can kill you at any point now. He forces W out, and now it's even easier to kill you. He could legitimately just flash Q auto attack ignite on the same frame. But I think it persists for a little bit longer. Yeah. Ah, no, I remember now what happens. You don't call me out. Right, this is just like the second someone leaves Fog of War, just call me out. Even if it's completely wrong, Yasuo is going to roam down bot and pick up a kill here. And then your lane's fucked. Like, your lane was already fucked at the first 3 levels because of how you've played this, right? And again, this isn't Flame, this is just how you're playing it and how it could be performed better. But like, him getting this free health lead here means that when you're going for these trades here, like you took what? You took 200 health off him here? Yeah, you took 200 health off him. If he's on 250 health, that's an ignite and a kill. So he can't go for these plays. So you giving him so much respect just because he's playing Yasuo, fucked you over this game. So now let's talk about where to ward. Ward, insanely simple, very, very easy mechanic. Just a massive fundamental. When you put a ward down at the very start of the game, it lasts for 90 seconds. And then in that 90 seconds, what you're trying to do is to get yourself to a point where you're able to be ahead by level 3. You want to be able to consistently, in this melee matchup, for example, you want to consistently be ahead of your laner. And to do that, you have to apply a shit ton of aggression. So getting a ward down is immensely important. And knowing which champion you're playing against is a really good way to get that ward down. And in that Elite 500 video, remember? He didn't get the ward down, so he died. So let's look at some spots where you can put wards. And kind of play with wards for a bit here. But, you like when you, by the way, when you like, I have quick indicator on when I press 4. For my trinket, and I see how it shows you the actual reticle for how much vision it's covering. You can actually see there is no perfect ward for covering these two exits right here. There's none at all. So you have to decide: do you put your ward here? Do you put your ward here and you cover the blue to red pathing, or well, I mean, or do you put it here and you cover the invade pathing? Because when you're covering the invade pathing, right, what you're taking over is this pixel brush. I think I called it tri brush earlier. I didn't mean that. It's a pixel brush. You're covering these 2 exits, and sure, right, it's not going to stop your teammates from being ganked, but what it's going to, or getting invaded, it's going to stop you from being ganked though. Because if someone paths from tri-bush all the way down through this bush and loops around, they're a fucking sociopath, and at that point you just got to say it happens, right? But these wards are insanely important. And you usually want to put these ones down at like, because they last for 1:30, and you're trying to get control of the scuttle crabs, right, which spawn at 3:30. So getting a ward down around here about 2 minutes is really, really effective, because you know that they're going to be pathing. Like, this will be done before 3:30. So around 2 minutes is really effective. 2:20 is fine. If you're against a certain type of jungler that just does Raptors red buff mid, or even just red buff mid, then you just straight put it here. Or if you're standing on the other side of the map, you just put it on the opposite side, right? You just put it there, right? You just put it there instead. So what it really comes down to is what you're trying to do, or what I'm trying to convey the message of, isn't you being able to absolutely predict what the opponent is going to do, but instead get in the mentality of every single moment that you are playing the game is potential for you to have a deeper understanding of it. Right? So if you are saying to yourself, all right, I want to go for this play in about 3 minutes, so I'm going to put a ward in about let's say this again. Let's give this a bit more dissection. When you're playing aggressive in this Yasuo matchup, at what point do you want to be far enough ahead where you can be pressuring him under tower and have the safety of a ward? Because if you're pressuring him under tower before the scuttle spawns, you are guaranteed first rotation. And if you get first rotation, you guarantee either scuttle, and potentially both. And that is an insane lead for your jungler to have. Because mid lane, you are a support for the jungler. So for the first 3, you're a support for the jungler until levels, until Scuttle dies, right? You're its support. You got to guarantee these things from it. If you're playing with a jungler that just gives up scuttles and just goes for deep invades and claims their jungle and gives up pressure on the sides of the map for their own stats, it's whatever, right? This stuff doesn't apply to those types of junglers. But I'd say 95% of junglers want to get these scuttle control, because if you've got control of the top half or the bottom half of the map, it opens up so much leeway for your laners to dominate, and for you personally, who makes use of both of these, to be the most effective on the map. And that's what I imagine. Well, that is the Slicker special. That is how you kill people at level 6, how you get to level 11 when everyone else is level 9, and you just fucking press R, and they're like, holy shit, I just lost all of my health, and I got hit by a QER. He didn't even ignite me. He ignited my Lulu, and she died just at the Q. Right? This is insanely important for you. Alright, now this time, we're going to start with you first, and then go into Elite. And this time we're talking about the range matchup. And one thing I should definitely specify inside of these videos is the fact, or this inside of this analysis, is the fact that I do not give a shit about how much farm you miss, right? Missing farm is your own thing. It's something that you can work on over time. That, to be honest, I don't really give a fuck about. Just because, I know the importance of it, but last hitting is a whole other topic, and it's not something you need me to tell you about, because I know you understand it, and I just what I really want to convey is putting you into a position where you can carry games, because I know you can. I just think you get hung up on the early game. And if you're not getting hung up on the early game and you're playing it in a way that's actually optimized to a point of you know exactly what you're doing, when to do it, and how to continue to do it, that's what I want to help with, because I think that's insane. But yeah, this is the ranged matchup, right? And I thought this was important to go over. So this early game, you get lucky and you get a first blood and die and come back to perfect time for the minion wave. And I think you came back with boots. Yeah, you come back with boots. I really think you should consider when you get first blood, rather than if you have a Doran's ring, you get a Dark Seal, right? What I really think is more important isn't things that increase the amount of damage you're doing, but things that increase the way that you play the game. You'll see that you don't really utilize these boots, right? You'd still be playing it the same even if you didn't have the boots. But if you were to buy, for instance, this control rod's really useful, but if you were to buy a Doran's ring, you're in an insane position, because Doran's ring, you come back with health, you come back with AP, which is benefiting the way that you like to play the game as well. But it also comes back with this passive that every single time you kill a minion on full health, you get whenever you kill a minion when you have full mana, you get 3 health. So you're just granting yourself more sustain, which inside of these range matchups is what you want to have. So you come back to lane, perfect timing, right? This was actually so big for you. And you play the matchup. I don't really have any pointers for you here, because when it comes to the range matchup level 3, it's just about being level 3 when the scuttle's up, and having the abilities you need to claim Scuttle Crab. And that's really all it is, right? So you're in a range matchup, so you just kind of farm at each other. You try to work out a way to put the minion wave into a position just before the tower where it doesn't crash, where it loses no minions, and you just freeze it there, and you just claim gold, and then when it's about to hit 3 minutes 15, when the scuttle actually spawns, then you shove it, or you push it at about 3 minutes, right, and you break that freeze, and then you're even, and then you rotate before them, and you get vision control. You just get total annihilation of the early game, right? So you're both level 3. You're honestly, you haven't done anything wrong yet. You froze it in front of the tower, maybe like how you're last hitting minions, but again, I don't really give a fuck. In the perfect spot again. Maybe you could go for a few trades here and there. Like, one thing I would say is that, from my experience of playing range versus range matchups, I like to go for consistent trades over time, lose some of my health, but make them lose slightly more, and over time they'll build up, and you'll have like 100, 200 health lead. So when you go for these scuttle plays, they're the easy target for your jungler, and then, so you kill their mid laner, and then you kill their jungler, and you might sacrifice your life for it because you're slightly low, but at least you're benefiting your team, right? Getting your jungler ahead, that's all that matters in the early game. You want your jungler to think that they're really good and boost their ego, and then when you hit like 5 minutes and you're back on lane, you're kind of surviving, and then you hit 15 and you just like kill everybody. That's like the goal, I personally think. But again, that's me, and I'm not going to force that on you. So I think you're doing everything perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing really wrong going on here. Maybe a ward. Like, Kane has started blue, I believe. Yeah, Kane started blue because he died and he needed the healthy leash. You see them come back, so you know that he's going to full clear. So I guess it's hard for you because you just died. You know what? I'm going to say you're in the perfect position. You have done everything you possibly could have. I'm going to just summarize it as that. But I think the int is about to happen. So Hecarim wants Scuttle Crab. You guys know that she has a ward in that bush now. You're claiming the Scuttle Crab for her. This is so, so nice. And then the mistake happens now. Hecarim's leaving. And you're going forward. And then Hecarim's going forward and you're leaving. Right? Like, if you have a ward here, Kane's there, but you can kind of assume Kane's there because of the way she's positioning. It's not like she's positioning here. She's actually positioning into the Hecarim and kind of fucking herself over and forcing herself to flash. So she put herself into a shit spot. So you can kind of tell he's there. This is real rough. Yeah. And I think you lose the game off this play and this play alone, which is so unfortunate because it could have been such a crazy game with your lead. I don't know if you might win it, but I think you lose. But yeah, right. It's not like you played anything too bad. It's just like, in this position, you are at a health deficit. And what I was talking about before, going for trades where you come out slightly ahead, that's what she did to you. And then her jungler came and you did the exact thing that I was talking about, right? So just surviving, I think, for range versus range. I think that's the best way to play it. And I'm pretty sure that's what Elite 500 does. Okay, so you're in a similar position, right? But there's one thing I want to talk about that Elite exploits that you didn't. And it's the idea behind resource management. So like, there's ammunition in the game, there's mana, there's health, and energy and rage. Like, those are resources that we use, right? Like, there's gold that you generate and stuff like that adds more to it, but like the fundamental resources is health, mana, energy, rage. These are the things that you are given to use just as the champion, right? And one thing that Vladimir gets to exploit pretty well, like just as much as manaless champions, rage champions, like exploits energy, like energy champions as well, is the fact that mana users lose a fuck ton of mana in the early game. And that's what he exploits, right? So Syndra is at this ridiculously low mana pool because she's constantly trying to trade elite, but she can't get any like proper fantastic trades off because he's just sustaining. He's just dodging Qs. He's just forcing her to be on low mana and then pressuring her, right? Like, and when he gets ganked here, because Rek'Sai just does scuttles insanely well. Like, what does she do to follow this up? There's nothing she can do. She's out of mana. So Rek'Sai blows flash, and they just get topside scuttle. So that's really all I wanted to talk about for like this late clip. Like when it comes to range versus range, the real gameplay doesn't happen until 15 minutes. And yeah, I trust that you know what 15 minutes looks like. And that's about it for now. That's all the level 1 to 3 stuff I think is, I mean, important to focus on. Like a bit of a summary, just some notes that I just wrote down just so you can see the main point I'm making. Like in your level 1 to 3 melee matchups, more aggression and more, just being able to hit those champions, those auto attacks, those Qs, being in a position where you can actually force them to be on low enough health that when you're against those Yasuos, those Yones, those Fizzes, when they're about to hit their spike of level 3, they're actually in a disadvantageous position and that they might not necessarily be used to. So they feel the need to limit test and then abusing that need to limit test to generate more gold, or just continuing to like deny CS at farm and just be slightly more ahead of them until 15 minutes and then just carry the game, trying to minimize volatile lane matchups. So like when you're playing range versus range, that's really what you're trying to do. You're just trying to make the most even lane as possible against mana champions, against energy champions. You're just trying to survive. Same against champions that don't have mana, right? Like you're just trying to exist in the lane. Not blame. Oh, this is actually an insanely important one. You are allowed to blame teams when your teammates when the game is going on, because it is their fault, right? I'm not saying it's not, but when the game is over, the only person to blame is yourself. There is a resource called VOD watching, and VOD watching single-handedly makes it so that you can learn to be better for yourself and for your team. And your team might not necessarily do that, and that's what makes them worse, right? And the reason why they're to blame, right? Like I played a game today where my support on Blitz got 10th and I got 4th, right? Like when I'm playing the game, we both know, right? We can both agree that it isn't always our faults, and a lot of the time it's just like the randoms you play with. But the only thing that you should be doing after the game is claiming that blame. And I think that's an important lesson. Like it's something that I've got to force myself to do, right? Because I just like blaming people because I'm a cringe lord. But I think it's something that you'll appreciate as well. Remembering to watch early jungle, just like don't sit into your tower for the first minute and a half of the game. The game starts at 15 seconds, so play from then. And willingness to take early pressure to help the team. You get ganked all the fucking time, and then you get tilted because they're like, man, there's so many fucking people mid. That's a good thing. Like, I like that's something you should definitely wear with a badge of honor. Like, you are creating so much pressure in the mid lane that they have to require help. They have to bring their support up. They have to bring their top down. Their jungler has to hover mid. Like, that's an insane position for you to be in. And I think if you are, like, more willing to accept that position and, like, the rewards that you get to benefit from, I think, like the playstyle that you have when you're winning games will be more consistent when you're losing games, if that makes sense. Because I think when you're ahead, I think you snowball really well, and then you kind of interbit, and then it's risky. Oh, that's a good one. The final takeaway. You snowball well, but you have a tendency to int. So when you're behind and you start snowballing, you accidentally int, because you're going for a play that wasn't necessary, right? And I'm sure you understand that to a perspective, and I'm not going to push it further because I'm not trying to flame you or anything like that. It's just a note, just another thing to watch out for. So yeah, this is the level 1 to 3 shit. If like, I don't that's the only thing that like I've ever been really aware about your play, because I think after that becomes a stylistic choice. But if you nail this shit, you like diamond will be really, really easy to get for you. Or at least that's how I feel about it.